I think an important starting point to think about therapeutic fasting is you don't start with therapeutic fasting. You start with the foundation. You start with the smaller doses of things that get you to that therapeutic level. Welcome back to another episode of the Fasting Method Podcast. This is Coach Terri Lance, and I am joined today with Coach Heather Shuker. Heather, how are you today?
Doing great as usual, Terri. How are you?
I love it. I'm good too. All right, Heather, I'm super excited about this episode. I might say that often because I get so revved up about these topics, but I wanted to pick your brain and share some thoughts about a topic that I think is so valuable to anyone, whether they're just getting started in the fasting world or whether they've been doing it for a long time. And that is this concept that we talk about a lot at TFM, therapeutic fasting. Because one of the, I would say, leading questions or puzzles that people have in front of them is, what should I do? What protocol? How much fasting? How often? How do I know how to do this? So let's dive into this idea of therapeutic fasting.
I completely agree, Terri. It is one of those things that we sometimes assume people know and understand because we forget that not everybody is mired in this as much as we are. So I think it's always a good idea to come to this with a fresh beginner's mind and look at it as we once did, as people that were brand new to fasting, who were a little nervous about it, who were very excited about the possibilities, but really unsure as to how to get started. So let's talk to them, our beginner friends who really need to be walked through what therapeutic fasting actually is.
I think an important starting point to think about therapeutic fasting is you don't start with therapeutic fasting. You start with the foundation. You start with the smaller doses of things that get you to that therapeutic level. You know, if we think about some kinds of medical treatments, they can't put you on a really high dose of something right away. They have to titrate you up. So you have to introduce the treatment at a lower dose until your body adjusts and knows what to do with it and responds well. And you can check out, is this dose working yet? Do I need more? And then you titrate up to that higher dose. It's the same thing with fasting. A lot of people begin fasting and they hear the big numbers. Do a 3-day fast, do a 5-day fast. Do alternating 42-hour fast, do 6, and it just gets so overwhelming. What if you could focus on what's the beginning dose? Where do I begin this treatment?
It's so funny, Terri, because you're using my language, medical language with titration. I'm going to go ahead and use yours, which is the fasting dial. We start with the beginning. We start with level 1. And what that looks like is no snacking, no grazing. We love to throw the TRE, and I have some clients calling it tray, but time-restricted eating, 2 or 3 meals, that's fasting level 1. And I do have some clients that are more advanced that are like, that's baby fasting. That is not baby fasting. First of all, that is a perfect maintenance strategy. So that's actually where we're all headed. But also, if you're coming to us brand new and you're still used to that late morning snack, that late night snack, sipping on coffee with creamer all day, then that's where we would love for you to get started, to rein it into fasting level 1, the very first notch on that fasting dial, which is to limit yourself to meals only.
Bingo. So again, lowest dose. And I think I understand sometimes why people are almost frustrated by that answer. They don't want to start small. They don't want to start building the foundation. They want the results. They want to get there now. And both of us have experienced this. We experience it in our community. We experience it with our clients. There is no way to just get there now. You have to build up to a therapeutic level where you see the results. This brings up another important topic. What is the therapeutic level? And sometimes I think people want a roadmap. Again, if we go to medicine, it's like, oh, everyone should take this dose. Oh, wait, but this person only weighs 120 pounds and their metabolism is very slow. They methylate slowly or whatever. What's the right dose for them? Versus this person is 280 pounds and their body processes things at this speed. Should they be on the same dose? And will they get the same results at the same dose? And I think most of us can understand that doesn't even make sense to think about it that way. And yet, people want us to hand them the golden ticket. Everyone, just go do this. Versus, how do you discover what's a therapeutic level of fasting for you? Where do the results happen? Where does the healing happen in your body based on the dose, the notch on that fasting dial? Where does your body show you that it's working?
Terri, I'm a little blown away right now with how perfect that analogy was. You have perfectly summed up what I see, which is exactly what you said. What am I supposed to do? And people that we don't know, that aren't coaching clients, that we have no background on, we'd have no, kind of information about them, just want an answer. And that's just not how this works. And if it did, I promise you, we would give you the answer. We're not holding back here. The reason that we can't give one solid answer that applies to everyone is because there isn't one. We are coming at this from so many different angles, different ages, different body fat percentage, different level of metabolic dysfunction, whether or not you're, have a good healthy fasting insulin or you're pre-diabetic or you're type 2 diabetic. There's just such an array. And all of those pieces play together and are part of how you can figure out what the best regimen is for you. But I think what is something that's transferable is what we're talking about now, which is to start with level 1 and intensify and adjust accordingly on that fasting dial. It is not always amping it up indefinitely. Sometimes we can go too far and we have to pull back. We have to adjust, either because of how our body is responding, because of our social obligations, the stress, myriad of things cause us to make those adjustments. But there is no one set answer that applies to everyone. And I think a lot of times the reason that people don't like that first answer, start with level 1, like you said, they want results yesterday. I want to have dealt with this yesterday. I didn't. I'm dealing with it today, so I want to go as fast as possible. Hold on there. A couple things happen when you ramp up too far, too fast. You can burn out. You can feel very unwell and then decide fasting's not for me because I feel so unwell. And really, it's for everyone. It's just a matter of making that adjustment and figuring yourself out along the way. And another piece is that people want to deal with the fasting, not with the food. And so often, the reason people don't want to settle into time-restricted eating is because the food is hard and they found fasting to be easier. And so they want to deal with the easier thing. Even if the hard thing is what in long term is going to be the thing that is actually going to be what gets them to where they want to go and keeps them there. And so not wanting to do TRE is a red flag to me as a coach. When I have clients that are like, no, let's just get to fasting. Let's slow down a little bit. You hired me as a coach for a reason. And that is not only to help you reach your goals, it's to help you maintain them. And if along the way you're not practicing the food and changing from that old way of eating that got you into trouble in the first place into a new way of eating that is sustainable and that can maintain your weight, you're going to be in trouble long term. And fasting is going to be harder and you're going to spin your wheels more and you're going to be more frustrated. Have you ever said, I know exactly what I need to do to lose weight? I just can't make myself do it. If so, you are not alone. But have you considered this? What if making yourself do it is exactly what you need to learn how to do? In my experience, not only as someone who has personally lost 80 pounds, but also as someone who coaches clients to lose weight, that's exactly the missing piece of the weight loss puzzle that is keeping people from reaching their weight loss goals. My name is Heather Shuker. I'm a coach with the fasting method. And if you would like me to teach you what I know about weight loss and how to stay consistent, you're in luck. This July 15th, I will be teaching a weight loss workshop, a 3-day workshop. I'm going to be covering the principles, the pitfalls, and the protocols necessary for sustainable weight loss. I hope to see you there.
I was going to just bring up that part that you just added, so I was so glad you did. I'm just going to piggyback on that. So not only, as you said, are the results, is your body not going to be able to do the work that you are wanting it to do if you're not also changing your relationship with food and your food behaviors, but it's going to make this magical thing of fasting much harder to do, more uncomfortable, more cravings, more hunger to battle. Sure, we've got some strategies to help you manage cravings and hunger, but what if we just don't even have to, because we built it up so that our body knows how to do this. And if we're giving it inputs that interfere, fasting, doing that magic thing is going to be so much harder. And again, as you highlighted, for so many of us, that feels really defeating. We already have a system of believing that we can't do this or that we're flawed somehow. Other people can do it, but not us. And so if we don't work on the relationship with food piece, fasting is a much more complicated beast to tackle, with results that aren't as promising as what we initially started for. So Heather, oftentimes people in the community or people come like to our coaches' corner meetings and places, and they want to know, what am I supposed to do? What do you do? What protocol works? And so some people will say, I started doing 18-6. How come it's not working? And other people say, I've lost 20 pounds and I'm doing this. And other people are like, wait a minute. So what's your sense of that? Like, is level 1 therapeutic for anyone?
Oh, yes. Level 1 is absolutely therapeutic for some people because they're willing to work on the food piece. I don't think it's possible for me to emphasize that enough because I am thinking of a client that I actually met with earlier today. She was struggling to get the fasting under control. So we decided to table that. Let's really focus on time-restricted eating. Let's really focus on sticking with meals and getting rid of the refined carbohydrates, the sugars, the grains. Lo and behold, once she made that shift mentally, like, okay, I can table the longer fasts for now, focus on meals, but more importantly, focus on what I'm eating in those meals, she's lost 38 pounds using time-restricted eating. Notice I didn't say just time-restricted eating because she's had to do a lot of work to make those adjustments in how she eats. And she even asked, why is this working? And you know, the answer is because there are a lot of ways to get insulin resistance to come down. Not snacking and grazing is one of them. So time-restricted eating is an effective way to lower your insulin resistance. And not eating a bunch of refined carbohydrates is a way to get your insulin resistance down. And once we have insulin resistance more under control, which she does, then our body is available to tap into body fat for fuel. And so people ignore that step thinking it's not going to be beneficial and they want to focus on these long fasts when really if they focused on the food, they might make more progress than they are even expecting, like that client. Unfortunately, though, as you and I both know, there's also the scenario where our insulin resistance is too far gone, whether we're type 2 diabetic or we've been obese for decades, which was, the case for me, where that wasn't enough. But that isn't to say that that isn't enough for some people, which is all the more reason that everyone should start there. And even if it's not going to be enough for you, practicing it on your eating days, during your holidays, during vacations, what have you, that practice is necessary as you're advancing your therapeutic fasting so that when you're done, right, when you've reached your weight loss goals or your blood sugar goals, that you have practiced maintenance that whole time and now it's seamless. You remove the therapeutic fasting, the more intensive fasting, I'm saying, and then that is your holding pattern in perpetuity for the rest of your days.
I love it. I'm also thinking, as you just described that TRE, no snacking, no grazing, eating the foods that work for your body, these are the stabilizing behaviors. Like you said, these are the behaviors we're going to use in perpetuity. I don't care what the number on this scale says. If I want to stay where I want to be, I have to use those strategies. So let's learn them in the beginning. Let's get good at them. And let's test them out. How much strength do they have for us? I think this might also apply if I went to see a personal trainer and they start me off doing certain exercises with a low number of weights, a few pounds or kilograms. I'm guessing they're checking to see, at what point does this help Terri's body? First of all, we can't start with the high numbers first. Her muscles aren't ready. Her stamina isn't ready. So let's start her on this lower dose of how many pounds or kilograms she's working with and reps. And then we're going to see if my body fat percentage starts coming down and you can start seeing tone in my body. Do you need to go up to a higher number of kilograms or pounds in my hand to do the exercise? Probably not. And I'm big on let's do the least effort to get the most benefits. Now, I'm not talking biohacking. I'm not talking about quick fixes. But again, if you are someone whose body is able to release weight doing TRE and eating the right foods, bravo. I love that. And if your body doesn't yet show you that this is a therapeutic level, great. You've now got these stabilizing forces ready, and now you can dial up. You can dial up to doing some 24-hour fasts. Again, same thing. For some people, moving up to the 24, bingo, the results start presenting themselves. For others of us, the bigger results we're looking for don't yet appear with 24s. It almost feels like some kind of lottery. It's like, okay, am I going to be one of those people who sees the results at 8? Okay, not 18. Let me see. Will I be one who sees okay, not at 24. But that's what it is to keep testing. Build the foundation, move to the next level when your body is ready, and stay there for a little while to find out, are you getting the results you want? Because I think that's another thing that many people, out of maybe excitement and drive, bypass, is they don't wait enough to even see if the current dose is enough. They just want to go for the higher dose, more fast, more frequent fast, longer hours. Let's see what your body can show you at this level. Not yet seeing your body's full potential to release weight? Let's turn it up. Let's do the next step toward decreasing that insulin resistance.
Exactly. And I think it might be a good idea to tell people what the next step is. Because, and you've talked about this before, I've heard you talk about this, where we start with 16:8, 18:6, and then people start doing weird things with the clock. They're like, oh, can I make it to 20 or 22? And so day by day by day, they're thinking, I just want to stretch the clock. And that's not what we mean when we talk about upping the dial and therapeutic fasting. We're actually talking about adding up to 3 therapeutic fasts, so 3 or 4, okay, but earlier on in the dial, can we add 3 fasting days a week in? And a fasting day would be a 1-meal day, meaning a 24-hour fast, or a no-meal day, meaning a 36 or 42-hour fast. And in general, we recommend alternating them. And so instead of what we think about with 16:8 or 18:6 is something that we do every single day, when we start upping the dial, we want to add those in about 3 days a week. And I think that's an important distinction to make because of how many people that haven't made that distinction, but also because when we think about the effectiveness and how long we want to do this, we don't want to be necessarily therapeutic fasting or doing something beyond time-restricted eating indefinitely. We want that to be kind of time-limited based on our goals. Now, for some people, it's going to take longer than others, But, you might be able to get this thing knocked out in 6 to 9 months if you are intense about it and if you show up to it consistently. And so what we're really talking about that is, can you show up for 3 days of fasting consistently, week after week after week, for 6 to 9 months?
Heather, I love that you really highlighted this idea that therapeutic fasting isn't necessarily something that you have to do long term. You have to do it while you need that level of intensity. And then we're going to work on, how do we dial back? How do we get to a place where we can maintain our health and our weight goals? But something else that you said in there that I wanted to go back to is the idea that, as you said, it's not just adding number of hours. Because all of a sudden I have clients who say, well, every day I'm getting to 19. How come nothing's happening yet? That's not really the goal, even though that's what it might sound like when it's just like, go a little longer, go a little longer. Actually, what we're talking about is get to the point where you can stretch to that next kind of level of intensity that provides benefits. So I often encourage people to think about, again, depending on what their needs are, at what point in a fast do we start to see some of the stronger benefits of fasting? So if you say, hey, Terri, I did 18 hours 3 times last week. How come I didn't lose weight? Pretty sure you and I no longer would consider 18 hours from their last meal yesterday to our first meal today as fasting. We would see that as, that's good, healthy meal timing. That's great for us, but it doesn't really get the benefits of fasting going if our therapeutic need is more. So what happens as we get to some of those higher numbers? Not just 19 instead of 18, but 24, 36, 42. And at some point, I have talked about this many times, so some of you may be familiar with this, but the idea of what I call the Three Amigos. This is not about the movie, The Three Amigos, but I do picture that. I should probably create a meme about that. But the 3 big things that I encourage people to think about, once I get to a certain number of hours into a fast, my body is no longer just prepping me and doing good things. I suddenly have these 3 assistants that are really powerful. I have autophagy, that self-cleaning, getting rid of the old tissues and things. I have increased noradrenaline, so increased fat burning, which is, I think, what many of us want. And I have increased human growth hormone, which helps me, if the last one was helping me burn body fat, this one is helping me take those amino acids and create more lean mass, which is metabolically more efficient. So I want to get to a place where I can invite those 3 amigos in regularly. So moving to a 24. For some of us, then moving that to a 36 or a 42. That starts to tell us how long have the 3 amigos, those 3 big benefits, been with you during this fast. And if every day I stop at 19 hours, I'm probably not getting the benefit of those yet. But if my therapeutic dose doesn't require the 3 amigos to show up, great. But this is where that kind of stretching and testing and figuring out what is therapeutic for me.
I love that you lay it down there. I've heard you talk about the 3 amigos before, and I still think of it constantly. Because isn't that such a motivating idea to have that vision of your head of these 3 gunslingers arriving to help you with your health goals, once you hit 24. And I think knowing that it comes at 24, and since 24 is one of the hardest times to fast through, I think it really is just an extra little push to know, okay, they just arrived. So if you can make it through that witching hour, which is that dinner time hour for many of us, you can have your bone broth, you can have your fasting fluids, you can take a walk, you can do some distraction techniques. But if you can have them come on in and sit down in the living room and hang out with you, overnight into the next day, then think about how much you're getting. And most of that you're sleeping through. You got to make it through one tough dinner and you get all that bonus effect. And I think having that idea and having that vision can help people get past this fear that they have of overnight fasting, where it's like, oh, I just can't. I'm okay with OMADs. It's like, well, yeah. And you're getting right there to the edge of the magic. But man, if you could just figure out that witching hour, you are unleashing so much benefit that people like you and I, Terri, like when we started talking about this today, we were like, man, it's great for those people that can use time-restricted eating and get the goals, but that ain't us. You know, you and I both required, like my fasting regimen was 342s. And so I needed that push from the Three Amigos in order to get to where I wanted to go. And so many of my clients, so many of the people that I've met are like, well, I've lost a little bit with TRE, but I'm not really getting where I want to go. All right, it's time to dig a little deeper. Now that you've got that practice and that's under your belt, now it's time to up the intensity, push a little harder, now that you're ready, and get the real magic going.
Absolutely. I'm going to wrap up with one more thing here, Heather. Consistency. It's not enough to have the Three Amigos over once. Just like it's not enough to go to the gym and do an intense workout and then wonder how come your muscle tone hasn't changed, your strength hasn't changed. The consistency, you keep saying like 3 times a week, for week after week, for months in a row. The consistency is also part of the therapeutic dose. Don't tell me I did a therapeutic fast on April 3rd. How come I didn't see the results? What have you done since April 3rd? Have you continued to do those fasts at the length that work for your body? That's where we see the results.
Couldn't agree more. And since we started talking about medicine, let's finish with medicine. My favorite analogy and the one that really spoke to me that Megan Ramos uses is the idea of chemotherapy. If you have a tough diagnosis, it's not like you come to chemotherapy when you feel like it or when it's convenient or when you don't have a lot of social engagements coming up. You show up for chemotherapy. You don't want to have this thing left undealt with. And so even if it's uncomfortable, even if you don't want to, even if you don't feel like it, you get in the car and you show up for treatment. And I think that's the piece that people really need to hear when it comes to doing this work. If you don't want this thing to drag out indefinitely, you want to get in here, do the hard stuff and get it done, then you need to show up consistently, just like you're saying. I love it. You don't have the Three Amigos over once. No, they need to be regular guests.
That's right.
If you want this magic to happen, folks, regular guests.
Absolutely. Okay, Heather, well, I think we have done a great job of summing up our passion about this topic of therapeutic fasting. I look forward to everyone applying this to their work that they're doing. Get consistent, start with level 1, and dial up to figure out where does your body need you to give it that support. So until we come back, I wish everyone well, happy fasting.
Make good choices.